offensive line. As it appears, Browns GM Andrew Berry is bringing in left guard Chris Paul from the Washington Commanders. I'm very familiar with Chris Paul, being that I am a Commanders and Jaden Daniels fan as well. So I'm very familiar with.
No, I don't want Chris Paul. First of all, I never heard of the guy. I mean, have you heard of Chris Paul?
No.
How is this guy getting all this money? Nobody's heard of this.
Contingency plan. And when you're the Browns, you beggars can't be choosers. You can't be mad that you worried about a car payment and the interest rate is super high when you ain't got no way to get to work. Do you need to get to work? Yeah. Does this car payment worth it? Not really. But I can't take the bus 2 hours to wherever I work. So I need a car today. JD by Ryder. And this is it. Chris Paul, welcome to the team.
The haters are absolutely losing it right now. The second the Browns brought in Chris Paul to protect Shedeur Sanders, the panic hit hard, because deep down, they know exactly what's coming. Shedeur is being set up to dominate. Do you think this signing proves the Browns are finally going all in on him, or will the haters still deny reality? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And man, the reaction from the haters was instant and honestly embarrassing. As soon as Chris Paul was signed, people like Bull acted like the Browns just picked a random name off the street. He straight up admitted he had never even heard of the guy, and somehow that was supposed to prove the move was bad. That logic? Absolutely ridiculous. Just because someone doesn't recognize a player doesn't mean he can't ball. Meanwhile, the real fans who follow the game know exactly what went down in Washington. Chris Paul wasn't some lucky backup stumbling into a job. He earned it. Early on, he rotated in and out, waiting for his moment, and when that moment came, he didn't waste it. The Commanders had already invested in another young guard expected to start, but when competition kicked in, Chris Paul simply played better. He earned the spot straight up. No favors, no politics, just performance. And once he claimed that role, he never let go. His growth that season was massive. Week by week, he showed strength in protection and a sharper understanding of the line. By year's end, he looked like a completely different player from before. That kind of leap doesn't happen by accident. It happens when a player finally gets the chance and proves he belongs. Cleveland saw that, and Andrew Berry clearly recognized the value before most of the loud critics even glanced. That's exactly why G. Bush's point makes way more sense than the haters' noise. The Browns aren't in a perfect spot to wait for the ideal option to fall in their lap. They need protection now, especially with Shedeur stepping into a huge role. When building offensive line stability, waiting while debating cost can turn disastrous. Sometimes you pay a bit more because the need is urgent and the opportunity is right in front of you. Chris Paul checks every box the Browns needed. He proved he can beat competition for a starting job. He proved he can improve fast once he's on the field. Most important, he brings exactly the protection a young quarterback like Shedeur Sanders needs to succeed. This wasn't a random move, it was calculated. Andrew Berry saw a player who fought for a starting role and held it through performance, and he acted before other teams could swoop in. The loudest critics are the same ones who never watched his development in Washington. Meanwhile, the Browns just added a guard trending upward at the perfect moment. That's exactly the kind of move that makes a quarterback thrive. The panic from the haters says it all. Deep down, they know this signing strengthens the Browns far more than they want to admit.
Probably going to have an inexperienced quarterback. They're going to need to be excellent at running the ball. Their offensive line last year was terrible at run blocking. So I'm not giving a contract that blows me away to a guy who's not good at run blocking.
Well, you're burying the lead on this.
Yeah.
He plays left guard.
Oh, well, are you saying that means that
Joe Batonio?
I mean, yeah, we kind of assumed that and kind of knew that that was probably where this was headed.
Yeah.
But if they're paying big money on a left guard, that sort of does it not sort of seal the deal on Joel's future?
If Joel is not coming back, and I think they begged and pleaded with him, he may be taking his time. But if they giving this dude money, that means they don't have any other options.
Well, there's going to be other options. You don't have to sign the most expensive guard who's a terrible run blocker. Why is that? Why is the solution to always pay the most expensive guy?
Because the Browns throw money at their problems.
That's stupid.
Inexperienced quarterback. That's the line Bull jumped to the second the Browns added Chris Paul. The obsession here is getting out of control. The moment Shedeur is involved, the same critics suddenly act like every move the Browns make is a disaster. It doesn't matter what the team does. Draft a player, complaints. Sign protection for the quarterback, complaints again. At this point, their fixation on Shedeur honestly needs to be studied. These are the same voices that spent months pushing every other name. Malik Willis was suddenly the savior. Anthony Richardson was supposed to fix everything. Anyone but Shedeur, that was the real agenda. And now that Cleveland is clearly building the line in front of him, the panic is obvious. Bull starts by admitting he barely knows the player. That alone should have ended the conversation. If you don't know the guy, how can you confidently say he's not worth the deal? Yet minutes later, the same person is speaking like a full-on scouting expert. First, the player is unknown. Then suddenly, he's a terrible run blocker. That flip is insane. How do you go from not recognizing a player at all to declaring him one of the worst guards in football? That kind of switch shows the criticism was never about the player. It was about finding a reason to attack a move that helps Shedeur Sanders. Then Jason Lloyd jumps in, and the conversation turns into full-on doom and gloom. Everything becomes a disaster in their world. They claim the Browns are just throwing money around with no plan. That argument falls apart the second you look at Chris Paul's numbers last season. His pass protection was among the best at his position. Meanwhile, Cleveland's offensive line last year didn't have a single lineman near the top in pass blocking. Not one. So the Browns add a player who has already proven he can protect a quarterback, and somehow that becomes criticism. The logic makes zero sense. Protection is exactly what a young quarterback needs. You cannot develop a passer if he's running for his life every snap. The Browns clearly saw a guard who improved fast once he started and acted before other teams could grab him. That's fixing a weakness. Yet Bull and Jason treat it like a mistake before he even puts on the jersey. That constant negativity is why fans are over it. Every move is bad. Every decision is wrong. Every situation is a crisis in their eyes. And the funniest part? The story changes depending on what helps their argument in that moment. First, Bull says he's never heard of Chris Paul. That should end the debate. If you don't follow the player, step back before judging. Instead, the criticism grows louder with every sentence. Suddenly, the contract is too big. Suddenly, the Browns are desperate. Suddenly, the player is terrible at everything. It becomes clear quickly. The goal isn't analysis. The goal is attacking anything tied to Shedeur Sanders. That's why fans call these two the kings of doom and gloom. Every discussion turns negative the second Shedeur's name comes up. But the reality is simple. The Browns needed stronger protection. Andrew Barry found a guard who fought for a starting job and proved himself once he got it. That's smart. The loud critics can keep shouting, but the facts remain. Cleveland just added a player trending upward at the exact position that protects their young quarterback. And that's exactly why the haters are so mad right now.
I'm looking at it. Do I love it? No, but we always knew we needed 7 linemen. He's a lineman. He can do a couple of things good. It's either that or KT Levinston.
You know, some guys you want to sign right away. But a lot of times in the NFL free agency, you get bargains late. Like solid players who fall through the cracks you get for little money. The Bengals signed Dalton Reisner last year. They re-signed him now right before. Like, he's a veteran guard. He's solid, amazing, solid. They paid him nothing. The Browns should do something like that at guard.
Well, I'm curious to see
What the price is.
Well, we haven't heard Tevin Jenkins' name at all. And if they liked him enough to bench Wyatt late in the year, wouldn't it make sense that you would like him enough to bring him back? At least you have some sort of track record with him.
G. Bush at least kept it real. He didn't act like the move was flawless. He just pointed out the obvious truth that the critics keep ignoring. The Browns needed more linemen. That's not up for debate. That's a fact. When a team is moving forward with a young quarterback like Shedeur, the last thing they can afford is a weak offensive line. Protection becomes priority number 1. So when Cleveland adds a guard who can step in and stabilize the line, the logic is simple. G. Bush saw that clearly. You need bodies up front. You need players who can handle multiple roles. Chris Paul checks that box. The Browns weren't hunting for some fantasy perfect signing. They wanted someone who could contribute immediately. That's how teams fix problems, step by step, piece by piece, and that's exactly what Andrew Berry is doing. The goal is straightforward: make life easier for Shedeur the second he hits the field. Bull, meanwhile, drifts into these theoretical what-if stories about waiting for some magical bargain later. Sounds nice in theory, but football doesn't run on hope. Waiting for a cheap option that might or might not appear can blow up fast. The Browns can't gamble like that. Last season showed exactly how bad it looked when the line struggled. The run game suffered, the pocket collapsed too often, and the offense never found rhythm. Fixing that weakness needed to happen immediately, not months later, hoping someone falls into your lap. Cleveland saw a player trending upward, a guard who finally got his shot and proved he belonged, and they acted before other teams could jump in. That's being proactive. It shows the front office gets how urgent it is to protect their quarterback. Talking about bringing back older or cheaper options misses the point. Familiarity alone doesn't fix a problem. Just because a team has used a player before doesn't mean he's the answer now. The Browns needed improvement, not comfort. Andrew Berry is clearly building a stronger wall in front of Shedeur Sanders, which means bringing in players still developing and improving every season. Chris Paul fits that perfectly. He fought for a starting job, won it, and held it through performance. That mentality matters on an offensive line. It breeds competition. It elevates the entire group. When a young quarterback steps in, he needs to know the guys in front of him can hold the line. That's why this signing is so important. Cleveland isn't sitting still anymore.
Have a lot of young players. They've signed 10 guys last year, and all of them rookies played. Yeah. All of them. Yeah. They're going to sign more dudes again, and all them rookies going to play. Yeah. So you're going to have cases where you may sign a guy, and he may not necessarily be a guy that's going to be playing in the middle of the season. But what you need up front is you need bodies. Because at the end of the year, we were signing dudes off the practice squad.
But you don't sign a guy who's going to be overpriced for bodies. You sign bodies for bodies.
They don't. That's funny. There was a song called "Body to Body" once by Chris Brown, but never mind.
G. Bush is keeping it real and pointing out something simple that a lot of people are trying hard to ignore. The Browns are a young team right now. Last season alone, they brought in a huge rookie class, and many of those rookies saw real snaps on the field. That tells you everything about where this roster is. Cleveland is building, not standing still. When a team is that young, depth becomes crucial. Injuries happen, players miss games, and when that happens, you can't just panic and grab random names off the street. That's exactly what went down late last season when the Browns had to pull players from practice squads just to fill spots. That situation wasn't stable. That situation was desperate. G. Bush is basically saying the front office learned from that mistake. They want real players in the building before the season starts. That way, when pressure hits, the team already has options. And when you're prepping for a quarterback like Shedeur to take a major role, that preparation becomes even more important. Another thing G. Bush made clear is that not every signing needs to be a superstar move. Some critics get confused and think every new player has to instantly become the centerpiece. Football doesn't work that way. Teams need layers, starters, backups, and players who can step in when things go wrong. Offensive lines especially need that depth because injuries hit that group all the time. Bringing in someone like Chris Paul isn't about a flashy headline. It's about strengthening the entire line, making sure the Browns never find themselves scrambling for bodies in December again. When Shedeur steps on the field, the last thing they want is chaos in front of him. They want stability, multiple players ready to handle the job if someone goes down. That's exactly the thinking G. Bush was explaining. And this connects directly to Shedeur and the bigger plan for the offense. A young quarterback cannot succeed if the line in front of him keeps falling apart. Protection, depth, and stability all matter. Cleveland clearly gets that now. They are stacking linemen so the team isn't one injury away from disaster. Some players will start, some will rotate, some might not even see the field right away. That's normal. The goal is to build a group that can survive a long NFL season. G. Bush understands this reality, while others pretend every signing must look perfect on paper immediately. The Browns are thinking about the full season and protecting their future quarterback. That's the real story here. They are building a stronger wall in front of Shedeur, so when his moment comes, the offense has a real chance to succeed instead of repeating last year's mistakes. The Browns just made a power move that protects Shedeur Sanders and shuts down the haters. Chris Paul isn't a gamble, he's a solution. The young QB finally has the wall he needs. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stay locked in. You don't want to miss what Shedeur does next.